Life, in its ceaseless unfolding, presents us with a seemingly paradoxical duality. Moments of blissful joy intertwined with deep wells of suffering. Too often we humans find ourselves ensnared by attachment to pleasures and an obstinate refusal to accept the impermanence underlying all phenomena. Yet it is this very tendency to desperately cling that breeds our greatest anguish. For when we surrender the ego's insistence on controlled outcomes, we open to the profound truth that nothing is permanently possessed. All arises, abides briefly, and dissolves back into the cosmic stream. The path of the Stoics beckons us to marvel at the grand choreography of arising and returning, cultivating an inner equanimity that transcends the alternating pleasures and pains of the material world. Through reason and virtue as our guides, we learn to flow gracefully with life's ceaseless metamorphoses. It is this ancient wisdom that we shall explore today, that in releasing our grip on the temporal, we paradoxically unshackle ourselves to revel in the eternal present's unfolding majesty. Before we begin, I would appreciate your support. Don't forget to click like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any posts. If you like the theme of this video, please comment +1. And if you don't like it, then comment 0. We look forward to hearing your feedback. Number 1. The concept of change and impermanence. Imagine a stream, its waters churning ceaselessly in an eternal dance. Within this flow, whirlpools form, swirling eddies that seem to maintain their shape for a fleeting moment. Yet they are merely temporary forms, for the waters that comprise them continuously rush in and out, replacing each molecule with new ones in a constant cycle of change. We mortals are akin to these whirlpools, given momentary form by the ceaseless flow of the universe. No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man. We are transient patterns amidst the cosmic currents, renewed with each breath, with each beat of our hearts. The great institutions of our age, even venerable seats of learning such as the University of California, are whirlpools of change on a grander scale, their students, faculty and knowledge embodying a choreography of constant flux. And is this not a profound realization, one that should fill us with a sense of wonder? Each cell, each molecule, and each atom within us is in perpetual motion, a microcosm of the ever-changing macrocosm we inhabit. To embrace this truth is to attain a deeper appreciation for the preciousness of each fleeting moment. If we are but temporary manifestations of an eternal process, what meaning can our lives truly hold? The answer, my friends, lies in the virtue with which we comport ourselves amid the currents of existence. Though the whirlpool is transient, the energy that shapes it is enduring. Number 2. Embracing change and impermanence. Imagine for a moment a world where nothing ever changes, where you remain forever fixed at one age, one circumstance, without progression or variation. A stagnant and hollow existence, is it not? For it is change that gives life its savor, its multitude of experiences that etch themselves into our souls. Just as day follows night in an eternal cycle, so too must the peaks and valleys of our fortunes inevitably rise and fall. Too often, we fixate on the peaks, the successes, the joys, the pleasures. Yet it is the valleys, the troughs of difficulty and sadness that bestow wisdom upon us. There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will. When we resist change and cling to what once was, we render ourselves miserable, for all things are impermanent, a truth as evident as the turning of the seasons. Yet this wisdom of embracing changeability fills many with discomfort and fear. We are creatures of habit, fearful of the unfamiliar valleys that follow each familiar peak, ignorant that it is this cycling between joy and sadness that breathes life into our existence. In my own life, I found equanimity not by avoiding misfortune, but by welcoming it as a guest when it inevitably arrived. As the philosopher Xunzi wrote, "Passing from the path to the brambles is no fault of the brambles." The valleys hold lessons if we remain open to them. Will you persist in dreading the valleys, resisting the natural ebb and flow? Or will you open your heart to change, secure in the knowledge that without darkness, light can never be truly appreciated? Number 3. Stop clinging to objects, people, and power. In our reverence for material wealth, social status, and the intoxicating allure of power, we blind ourselves to the ephemeral nature of these pursuits. Like grasping at the wind, we exhaust ourselves chasing after mirages that can never satisfy our deepest longings. Reflect upon the anguish that follows the loss of a coveted object or the rupture of relationships. Do these pains not stem from our stubborn refusal to accept that all things are borrowed gifts, temporarily lent to us by the turning of life's cycle? We are but travelers passing through, foolish to burden ourselves with unnecessary baggage. The Stoic path beckons us to stick with what is longest lasting, our capacity for reason, virtue, and love for one another. For while wealth decays and influence fades, the bonds of compassion and human kindness endure long after we have shuffled off this mortal coil. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. In shedding our attachment to the inessential, we begin to perceive the grandeur of life itself, a fleeting experience to be savored like a joyous party before it inevitably concludes. Yet there is an understandable trepidation in loosening our white-knuckled grip on the illusion of control. To view even our innermost identities as malleable can feel akin to staring into an abyss. This is why we so feverishly cling. It offers a fragile refuge from the unrestrained forces that shape our reality. Will you continue fruitlessly grasping at that which was never truly yours to possess? Or will you join me in savoring the sweetness of the present moment, treating all we encounter as honored guests soon to depart? Number 4. Stop clinging to the opinions of others. From our earliest days, we are conditioned to crave the approval of those around us. The warm smiles and adulations of our parents, our peers, our mentors, these become like soul-sustaining waters that we desperately drink in. In pursuing this acceptance, we willingly contort ourselves, investing immense time and energy into projecting an image we believe will render us likable. Make no mistake, harmonious relationships and a positive reputation are fortunate blessings. As social creatures, we thrive on healthy bonds with our communities. The wise understand that being well regarded opens many doors in this life. Yet, let us be cautious not to become enslaved by our thirst for popularity. For what is admired by the masses today may swiftly become scorned tomorrow. The currents of public opinion shift like autumn leaves caught in an erratic wind, their reasons often rooted in ignorance or whimsy. Those who know don't talk. Those who talk don't know. All too often we find ourselves expending precious inner resources in a Sisyphean quest to please those who do not truly understand us or themselves. Instead, I counsel you to cultivate a sense of unshakable self-respect. Root your identity not in the perceptions of the crowd, but in your own firm commitment to virtuous thoughts and upright actions. For in the end, no opinion matters more than that voice that echoes from within. This is not to suggest a callous indifference to how we treat others. Empathy and graciousness should color all our interactions. If faced with earnest criticism, we should handle it with poise, separate the emotion from the substance, and respond tactfully, not defensively, but with a sincere aim to improve for the benefit of all. But when the winds of unmerited scorn begin to howl, we must remain philosophical, unperturbed by those who blindly flail about in their own ignorance and misery. For what good is their disapproval when we walk the path of the upright? Their words need not rent our peace of mind. So I ask you this: will you remain endlessly contorted upon the endless treadmill of public favor, or will you find liberation in defining your own worth through reason and virtue? Number 5. Stop clinging to outcomes and ideas. From the moment we emerge into this world, our minds begin weaving tapestries of how we believe reality should exist. We construct edifices of belief around concepts like justice, security, and righteousness. We cling feverishly to these notions, expecting the unpredictable universe to conform to our preferences. Yet what is the root of our suffering but the anguish born of attachment to these imagined realities? We ache from the cognitive dissonance of an orderly world not matching the chaos we witness. We seethe at the lack of guaranteed safety and believe ourselves owed a debt of cosmic harmlessness that will forever go unpaid. Hope and fear are both phantoms that arise from thinking of the self. They are the twin serpents that coil around our hearts, birthed from an inability to simply accept the nature of people and the ever-changing world as it is, not as we wish it to be. The truth, harsh as it may seem, is that the universe owes us nothing and cares not for our desires or righteous convictions. It simply continues its eternal flux of creation and dissolution, largely indifferent to the pleas of the ego. This is not to suggest we abandon all beliefs or disengage from society's efforts to cultivate justice. The Stoics firmly upheld the civic virtues of engaged citizenship and ethical conduct. But we must not fall into the trap of emotional investment in how we insist reality should manifest. The only thing truly in our control is the ability to reshape our judgments, our attitudes and reactions to events as they unfold, favorable or unfavorable. To that end, we must release our white-knuckle grip on outcomes and ideas and focus solely on living and acting with wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. Whether the world rewards our deeds or not, virtue remains its own greatest prize. True satisfaction comes from embodying these highest principles and mastering our internal realm, the one domain that cannot be wrestled from our sovereignty. Will you persist in anguish, railing futilely against the unmovable cosmos, or will you disentangle from the self-created prison of insistence and find freedom by accepting what simply is? Number 6. Change as both positive and negative. In every life there are myriad changes that provoke visceral pangs of sadness, nostalgia, or even rage. The dimming of youthful vitality, the drifting apart of cherished relationships, the dissolution of institutions and beliefs we once held sacred. In these moments, how naturally we cling to what was, despondent at what has been lost. When happiness is present, there is no other happiness more valuable than that. For just as the inhale must facilitate the exhale, every ending paves the way for a new beginning, utterly distinct from what came before. It is our resistance to this fundamental truth that breeds the dukkha, the unsatisfactory suffering and frustration of human existence. We bemoan the loss of transient forms, blind to the immutable impermanence that renders all eventually subject to transformation. However, when we surrender our desperate need to freeze reality in stasis, we open ourselves to the profound beauty of each unfolding moment. The tender ache of nostalgia gives way to humble appreciation for those fleeting joys once savored. Rage softens into bittersweet reminiscence, for though individual moments are gone, the eternal currents of the cosmos permitted their existence, if only briefly. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. Yes, change may incite sorrow, but it simultaneously kindles the wondrous and the novel, pregnant with hitherto unexplored potentials. Once we understand this duality of change and make peace with the inescapable nature of impermanence, something profound occurs. We no longer helplessly grasp at the illusion of permanence. Clinging and its attendant suffering begin to melt like the morning frost under a rising sun. Will you continue battling hopelessly against the relentless tides of change, entrenching yourself in misery? Or will you inhale this greatest truth and exhale your attachment, opening yourself to the breathtaking dance that is this eternal becoming? Number 7. Marvel in the coming and going of things. All around us we bear witness to an endless procession of momentary materialization and demise. Clouds bloom Titan-like across the sky, only to dissipate into formless vapor. The first cherry blossoms of spring seduce the eye with their delicate beauty, petals flaring brilliantly before crumbling earthward. Our own thoughts and emotions, like silent comets, streak across our conscious awareness for the briefest of instants before fading into the cosmic night. How easily we become entranced by these effervescent displays. Like dazzled children, we chase them, grasp futilely to prolong their intensity and make them ours. We scrutinize and categorize, desperate to pin each fleeting manifestation firmly to identities and descriptions that our minds might solidify into permanence. Yet in doing so, we risk obliterating the very essence that renders these phenomena so transcendent. For it is their continual coming and going that awakens a sense of sacred awe within us. Through the mystery of their incessant cycling, we are offered a glimpse into the primordial wellspring from which all arise and return. Do you have the patience to wait until your mud settles and the water is clear? Can you remain unmoving until the right action arises by itself? When we surrender our ego's attachment to freezing reality within conceptual boundaries, we begin to perceive the miraculous choreography perpetually unfolding all around us. With practice, our frenzied pursuit of the temporary gives way to an opening of our senses. We start noticing the hidden rhythms and patterns underlying this cosmic dance of arising and dissolution. Each new blossoming is not an isolated novelty to be grasped, but an infinitesimal brushstroke within an ever-shifting masterpiece far grander than the mind can conceive. Will you continue dissecting the butterfly, forever fracturing its majesty into dry taxonomies? Or will you join me in marveling with a naked presence at the rapturous mystery of its ceaseless becoming and return to the void? As our journey exploring Epictetus's wisdom on embracing life's changeability concludes, let us reflect on the profound freedoms that await those who loosen the white-knuckle grip of attachment. When we release our frantic insistence on how we believe reality should be and accept the universe's indifference to our preferences, we paradoxically unlock reservoirs of inner peace. No longer consumed by cravings for the impermanent, we abide in the eternal presence of wisdom and virtuous action. Though the ephemeral forms of pleasure, status, and certainty will continually upwell and dissipate around us, the unshakable principles of reason, justice, courage, and self-discipline remain our anchors in the storm. Disentangled from the errant convictions and emotional tumult of the ego self, we achieve the supreme sovereignty of a life well lived. So let this light of Stoic philosophy illumine your path forward. Share these ageless teachings widely so that more might benefit from their liberating perspectives. And if enriched by this discourse, I invite you to subscribe to this channel so that we might continue plumbing the depths of philosophy together. The essence of philosophy is that of a watchful life. By remaining ever vigilant guardians of our judgments and firmly rooted in virtue, we paradoxically transcend the turbulence of earthly existence. We become the eye of stillness, encircled by storms of ceaseless arising and dissolution.